G'day Rugby League Tragics, and welcome to the first episode of the Rugby League Guy for season 2022. I'm going to just give you a very brief season preview from my perspective. It will be short and sweet, and then my round one tips. So kicking it off, I'll work from 16 up to 1. I've got finishing last for 2022 the West Tigers. Unfortunately, I just don't see any great improvement in the Tigers any more than we've seen over the last 9 or 10 years. I can't see them making the finals, and in fact, I can really only see them slipping further down the slope. I think Jackson Hastings is a fantastic buy for them, but I don't think he will be enough. Obviously, Luke Brooks is going to need to step up as well. And look, if both of those guys go through the season without injury, who knows what they're capable of. They may surprise us, but that's where I've got them at the moment. Like the Bulldogs with Gus Gould, I think Tim Sheens being at the Tigers will make a huge difference on and off the field, but just not huge enough with the roster they've got, unfortunately. So for me, Tigers will be taking out the wooden spoon in 2022. But for all my former cohorts back in Campbelltown, I hope I'm wrong. I can hear you all sticking daggers in me already, but time will tell. But that's where I've got them for the moment. At 15th, I've got the Warriors. Again, I just see a lack of depth. I'm not convinced with their halves. I think their forwards can be good in patches, but look, the Warriors just don't seem to have that consistency about them. Sean Johnson back at halfback. Yep, again, look, I think, that's a good move on a personal level, and it's nostalgic and it's all those things, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to get the Warriors much higher than 15th, and that's why I've got them there. At 14th, I've got the Broncos. Now that's it's only a one-place improvement on last year. The reason for that is, look, Adam Reynolds is a fantastic player. You don't need me to tell you that. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to be enough to really improve the Broncos to any great extent. I think they're lacking mongrel. I think they're lacking commitment. And I think that was confirmed last night on NRL 360 when it was mentioned that some of the players were complaining that the pre-season training was too hard. Well, that's what it is, and that's why you paid a minimum of 250 grand, I guess. So, it does steel you for the big games later in the season. Braithen Astor even said the same thing. So it's the tough stuff you do up front that gets you through in the back end of games throughout the season and in the finals when it counts. And I think just on that attitude alone, it just proves to serve that, or serves to prove that the Broncos probably just aren't quite the Broncos we once knew, and I don't think Adam Reynolds is going to be that guy. He's missing round one as it is with COVID. If he was to get any more long-term injuries as the season progresses, I think the Broncos would be pretty close to where I've got them at 14th. 13th, my beloved Bulldogs. I'm sorry, I'd love to say that they're going to be higher up the ladder. They're not going to finish last, but regardless of all the players they've bought and the talent that comes to the club, and even with Gus Gould there, I don't see them finishing any higher than 13th, and I'll put a caveat on that based on their current lineup. So if they move Jake Averillo out of the number 7, and I want to be clear, I like Jake Averillo. You will hear me saying that he's not a halfback shadow, he shouldn't be, and he's not. I'm honest about that. But you know what? It's not his fault that he's put into the number 7 jersey every week. The blame there, if it is blame, whatever you want to call it, lies squarely on the shoulders of coach Trent Barrett, who continues to persist in playing the kid at halfback. Now, in my opinion, and I'll keep this short and sweet because people have heard me go on about it ad nauseum, but Trent Barrett is not only killing his own career, he is killing Jake Averillo's career as well. And the reason I say that is because Jake Averillo is not a halfback, and Jake Averillo knows that he's not a halfback, and a lot of the experts on Fox and everywhere else know that he's not a halfback, but Trent Barrett persists. I think it's an ego-massaging situation for Barrett. I think he's just trying to be stubborn and persistent. I can't understand why David Furner hasn't got more of a say in what's going on, and I don't know what's going on with Trent Barrett and young Kyle Flanagan, but there's clearly something there, and Trent Barrett makes no effort to hide the fact that he's got an issue with Kyle Flanagan. So here's my bold prediction, as I put out on my page a couple of weeks ago. I think Trent Barrett will have until round 8. If he's not 4-4, and I don't think he will be, I think he'll be gone. And in my opinion, Shane Flanagan will be brought into the club. I think Gus Gould's probably already earmarked him. or possibly even Steve Price, who's the assistant at the Sharks. I'm not sure what his contract agreements are, but don't be surprised if Shane Flanagan is brought across from the Dragons. He'd only be there on a bit of a consultancy type deal, and I'm sure there'll be a clause there somewhere that says if you get offered a head coaching position, you're good to go. You can take it. So I think 8 weeks, 4 and 4, and then Trent Barrett, if he hasn't achieved that, he'll be gone. But the experts are saying that he'll get 6 weeks, and if he hasn't won 2, he's out. So if they don't beat the Cowboys this week and they don't beat the Broncos next week, I think they can forget it because they've got the top 4 teams from last year in the following month. I'm not being pessimistic, I'm being realistic. I've got the Dogs at 13th. Number 12, I've got the Cowboys. Now, initially, a month ago, or as recently as even a week ago, I had the Cowboys as running as spooners. I saw enough of them in a trial match the week before last to think that they've probably got a little bit more to offer than I thought, and I'm prepared to say that they'll finish higher than I thought they would. And I think they'll be in there around the number 12. Number 11, I've got the Knights. I'd love to see the Knights up a little bit higher. I've become a big fan of the Knights in recent times, and I like Adam O'Brien. I like what he's trying to do. I just don't know that he's got the talent there to back it up, and they do have a few injury problems. Mitchell Pearce is gone now, so they're an unknown quantity really, and a lot of criticism, constructive I guess at this point, that Kalen Ponga doesn't sort of play that 80 minutes that you'll see him play for Queensland or in a big game. So they're saying he needs to be more consistent throughout the game, and I think he probably does. But let's bear in mind he's a captain now, but he's also a fullback, and their involvement's sometimes only as good as your halves bringing you into the game. So wait and see on that one, but I think the Knights around 11. Number 10, I've got the Raiders. Look, they could easily make the 8, as easily as they could just miss the 8. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to go. Again, Jamal Fogarty, that's a big loss for them. He had big aspirations, as did the club, for 2022, and now that he's out for the first 4 months, I think it's going to really rely heavily on some of the younger talent in the halves. So that is definitely a watch this space for the Raiders. Again, I've got them at 10th, but they could easily sneak in at 7th or 8th even. But because they're a bit of an unknown quantity, I've got them sitting at 10th. Number 9, just sliding out of the 8, I've got the Titans. Again, they've brought in some new players, but I'm just not sure until I see a few games what their real potential is. Having said that, I think probably 9th. I just see a slight drop, if anything. The team I see popping in, and I wouldn't have picked this, I had them at 13th about a week ago, but there's just something about it that keeps eating away at me saying, no, they're going to do better than people think, and that's the St George Illawarra Dragons. I think they are going to surprise a few people. I think with Anthony Griffin there for a season now, and he's kind of got his foot in the door and put his own stamp on the place, and I think a couple of new players in and maybe a couple out that he was happy to see go, might see a bit of harmony and some consistency. So I've got the Dragons sneaking into the 8. The other team I've got sneaking into the 8, and again they could go either way, but the Sharks. I think Cronulla will be there 7th or 8th thereabouts. Again, they could easily slip to 9th. They're just one of those teams. But I tell you why I've got them in the 8 and I've got them in at 7 is Craig Fitzgibbon. I think he's a great asset as coach, even though he's going to miss this first week, his first NRL head coach gig due to COVID. I think he's going to have a massive influence on the club, and I think that Dale Finucane as well is going to be a massive inclusion for the club in terms of seniority and leadership, and I think also Nico Hines is going to be a great introduction. Whether he turns out to be a 5'8" is yet to be seen. I actually had him as a player. I thought he could easily slot in as a 5'8". It'll take some time, but I think they will be consistently winning games while he's learning that position, and he's only going to get better. So the Sharks at number 7 for me. At 6, I've got the Rabbitohs. Again, just that unknown quantity with Adam Reynolds gone, new coach, Anthony Seibold, all that sort of thing. Just the unknown about it. I think 6th, but again, give or take a position up or down. I think the Rabbitohs will be in there though. The Eels at number 5, again, another team that you could easily say, well, they'll just squeeze into the 4. But I think 5 is probably realistic. For me, I think there's some good talent there and they've got a lot on offer. I probably, a month ago, didn't even have them making the 8. I just thought they were going to be on a real slippery slope downwards. But I think they'll be okay. I think they'll make the 5, the top 5, as it was in the old days. Not sure that they can make the 4, but again, time will tell. Coming in at number 4, I've got Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Again, as you could say with all these teams, it could be a position up or down. I've got Manly at 4. I just think Desi has got his team at a stage now where they're really starting to gel. Tommy Turbo, if he can stay injury-free, I think Manly go a long way in this competition. But I've got them at 4th for the moment. Melbourne Storm at number 3. Again, the Storm have they've lost a couple of decent players in Nico Hines and Dale Finucane. But it's the Craig Bellamy element that always does it for me. He's the influence down there at that club. And I really think they will still be competitive. They've got a few guys heading off to Redcliffe next year. So they're going to want to have a big final year as well, and I feel as though they're going to be thereabouts in that top 3. Number 2, I've got Penrith. Look, Nathan Cleary's out for the first 3 rounds. I think it's a very clever decision. I don't think you risk your top player just to be ready in time for round 1. You're better off to rest him now and have him fresh for the important games towards the back end when you need him. Bearing in mind, he's also going to play Origin this year, so those 3 games he misses now aren't going to be crucial for Penrith, but they could be crucial for Cleary as an individual. So, good decision by his old man to leave him out. And Sean O'Sullivan, who's a local junior by the way, he won't let them down, and I think he'll get them through the first 3 rounds. And don't be surprised if Cleary's back next week or the week after. Anyway, he might make an earlier comeback than expected. Number 1, and I'll tell you, mate, outside of my Bulldogs, this would be my favourite club at the moment. And I'll tell you why. It's not just about what they do on the field, it's about what they do off the field, and it's about the people involved with the club off the field. It's that feeling of wanting to be there. It's that feeling you can tell people feel honoured to be there. The Roosters, I've got them at number 1. Trent Robinson's my favourite coach across the board. Everything about him, his technical ability, his social skills, his media presence, and the clear love and care that he has for his players and their families. I just think it's the whole thing as a package. If you're looking for a package, Melbourne's a very close second, of course, but it's the Roosters for me as a complete package as a club. And on the back of what they did last year, where they lost so many players through injury last year. They had a couple of the guys had to retire because of head knocks. I really impressed with the fact they finished 5th last year with the team they had. And I think this year they'll finish as the minor premiers. Now, who do I see as the premiers? I reckon it's going to be a Roosters Manly grand final, and I think the Roosters will get there. Again, I think Roosters are minor premiers and premiers. I think they'll play Manly in a close one. Penrith and Melbourne, of course, are going to be thereabouts. But I think it's going to be a Roosters Manly grand final. I think the Roosters will get there. That pretty much wraps up my season preview, who I think is going to finish where. I'll give you my round 1 tips very quickly to finish off. I've got Penrith and Manly. I've got Manly by 4. Now, I tipped that before I knew Cleary wasn't playing. I tipped these a couple of weeks ago, and I've stuck solid with them. It's at Penrith, but I still think Manly will get there. And Manly haven't won their round 1 clash in something like, 13 years. Or last time they did it, Jesus was playing fullback for Jerusalem. Let's put it that way. It was a while ago. Canberra and Cronulla in Canberra. I've gone with Canberra in a close one. Schneider at halfback. I don't think he's going to let them down. And I just think the Ricky influence and the home ground advantage will just get them across the line. Brisbane and Souths up in Vegas. I've got the Bunnies. I think they will get home, particularly with the Broncos being -1 Adam Reynolds. Easts and Newcastle, or the Roosters for all you new kids. I've got the Roosters. I think they'll win, and they'll probably win fairly convincingly. New Zealand Warriors and St George Illawarra Dragons. I have taken the Dragons. I think it's up in Queensland somewhere anyway. It's not in New Zealand, obviously, because of COVID. But I just think the Dragons will start the season as they mean to go on. Anthony Griffin's going to have them pumped and ready. West Tigers and Melbourne, a no-brainer really, particularly given where I've placed all these teams on the ladder for the year. I think Melbourne will get the Tigers. They may not, put a score on them, but they'll beat them. Although, I'm really looking forward to the likes of seeing, Hastings and Brooks, Adam Dewey, those kind of guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing West do something this year. But I just can't see them getting over Melbourne. Parramatta versus Gold Coast. I've got the Eels. I think it'll be a fairly tight game, but I just think the Eels, again, they start the season fairly well. And as Brad Arthur said the other night, he's not going to apologise for that. But I think you want to start as best you can, and I think the Eels will do that. And the North Queensland Cowboys versus the Bulldogs on Saturday night up at the old Dairy Farmers. I can't even remember what they call it anymore now, Queensland Country Stadium or something. Look, as much as it cruels me and pains me to tip against my own team, and you know what? The 2021 season was the first time in my life I've ever tipped against my team, but I realise if you're going to be fair dinkum in a tipping comp and be competitive, you've got to do that. And so here I am in round one, tipping against the Dogs. And again, it comes back to the fact that they've got Avarillo at halfback. The kid, I like him, but he's not a halfback. They've got Jeremy Marshall-King at hooker. They should have the young Cook from South Sydney in there, as far as I'm concerned. And Jade Knockenbore on the wing. I know Lumi hasn't played a pre-season game because he's been away with his father passing away. But mate, you don't bring Lumi up from Melbourne, and even if he's not match fit, based on trial form, you put him in ahead of Ockenbaugh. I'm sorry. So that alone, and I hope they go out and prove me wrong. There's nobody going to enjoy it more if the Bulldogs prove me wrong. But based on the Cowboys' trial form and the Bulldogs' resistance to play players in the correct positions, I'm tipping the Cowboys. I don't think it'll be by a lot, probably 6 to 8. But I think the Cowboys will get home up there in North Queensland. Well, that's it. First instalment for 2022. I did say I wasn't going to go on and waffle. I've still managed it to a small degree. But I've kept it under 20 minutes so far, so happy days. Look, stay tuned for more throughout the year. I'm going to be doing interviews with you guys. I'm going to be talking to the punters. I want to get you guys on and have a chat about how you came to support your team and who your family members support and all that stuff. So something a little bit different. And keep an eye on the Instagram and Facebook page as well. We're going to have some items that we might be giving away throughout the year, and also a few that I'll be selling. I've got some pretty good gear between Rugby League Weeks, Big League magazines, a couple of jerseys and things. I'll throw them up there in the coming days and weeks. And if you're interested, flick me a message. All right, guys, it's been great having me, clearly. And I can't wait for this season to kick off. It starts tonight. Penrith and Manly, get behind it, get your tips in. Don't necessarily follow mine because, we know what happens there. But let's enjoy this season. Let's get right behind it. Rugby League Guy signing off. Toodles.